A first-generation college graduate. Darren M. Coleman is from a small rural town of Pageland, South Carolina. He attended Bear Hill Elementary School in Charlotte, Mecklenburg, and moved to Pageland in the 1970s and completed elementary school at Petersburg. He eventually went to Pageland Middle School, then junior high school, and finally Central High School. He attended public school and did not attend preschool as far as he could remember. The curriculum for 9th through 12th looked very close to the STEM program. Schools were integrated, and he even had numerous white friends throughout school. His initial schooling started in the city, but since they moved to the country, it was all rural. He was poor growing up and accurately describes it as borderline poverty. No scholarships were received while he was in high school because higher education was not a goal. All 6 of his brothers and sisters finished high school, but that was it. After that, they were always told just to get jobs and go to work. As far as positive influences go, he said he had a local community pastor and another mentor type figure named Mr. Mickey Baker. Two classmates that were interviewed was Billy Ray, who was Mr. Coleman's friend, and William Coleman, who was Mr. Coleman's brother. Both of them knew Mr. Coleman in school, and they were pretty good friends. Both of them encountered many of the same issues as Mr. Coleman, and shared similar teachers and learning environments, but especially Mr. William Coleman, given the fact that he was Mr. Coleman's brother. Mr. Coleman believes in the ideal of the American dream, but understands that there are certain things historically that tend to hinder it. He understands the American dream as being able to make a life for yourself without living in poverty. He also gives an example of him being the only African American male that now works at his own job. He explains that if all educators sought to understand their students better, then maybe the American dream, or at least its ideal, could become more effective. Mr. Coleman believes that he has achieved the American dream considering the fact that he has came from a poor family. He has achieved a comfortable career as an educator, but also stresses the importance of nobody giving him anything. He realized that because of his lack of education, he wasn't going to get a 6-figure salary, so he had to go back to school and work hard. As far as the school background goes, Central High School has been around since 1975, and he started going there in 1979. The school is still operating today, and the demographics are in the poor and rural South. The school was definitely not a magnet school, and at the time he was enrolled, he does not even recall there being a teacher cadet. Mr. Coleman professes that he was just an average student, and he was never really motivated by anyone to do better. They didn't have any books that were read because they didn't have any. And a lot of these factors would actually serve to push him not only to get a higher education, but to influence his career choice so he could help those that was like himself. As far as his family educational background goes, as stated earlier, his mother and father did not attend college and only completed at most an 8th or 9th grade education. He is the only one with a master's degree, and as one can see, not coming from the most advantageous backgrounds contributed to his relatively poor standardized test preparation, and which in turn contributed not going to college immediately after high school. His parents did not talk to him much about education, and their idea of child rearing was to let the children be children and the adults be adults. He also suffered from a lack of parental investment academically. He was not taught anything educational outside of school and did not have any access to this type of material from anyone inside his immediate family. Busing and desegregation were in full effect, and the fact that these types of issues were occurring during this time goes right back to the idea of social identity. Mr. Coleman would have certainly been categorized as the poor black boy who came from a seemingly uneducated family. And these types of groupings also changed the way he was taught by his teachers, attributing to his average achievement in high school. Mr. Coleman also mentions that the SAT was fully around, and since more than 500,000 American high school students were taking this test, it's not hard to see why this claim was made. Mr. Coleman also explained that the achievement gap was beginning to become a prominent talk of conversation and remembers it being discussed as growing and at an alarming rate. Class and race especially affected his success, and being from a poor African American family didn't always afford him with the best resources. Mr. Coleman believes that these social issues still exist in our society, and maybe not in terms of segregation, but definitely in terms of class. The career he has today is an educator at Northeastern Technical College in Cheraw, South Carolina. He works as a student success coordinator, which helps with the student life in a 2-year setting. His job is to help students, much like himself when he was growing up. He encourages students to transfer to 4-year schools, and he also said he still encounters plenty of first-generational college students just like himself. He also serves on the school board in order to further help make decisions for the betterment of education in the community, and he attributes much of his success to a friend who encouraged him to go back to school. He is very happy with his career choice. He also talks briefly about having connections and how it tremendously helped him in his career. He explained that connections helped him to get a greater understanding of his career, and they do serve their purpose, but he said they should never eliminate equality and opportunity. Mr. Coleman's entire educational experience is the essence of the American dream. It shows a man from a poor family who took the initiative to further his education and make a life for himself and his family. As a first-generation college graduate, he broke the cycle of a family who had only previously barely received a middle school education. From a truck driver to an educator at Northeastern Technical College, Mr. Coleman's life shows how success is possible even in the most unlikely circumstances.